Have you ever pondered over the consequences of a nuclear war? A question that might seem far-fetched, but in a world where 9 countries possess nuclear weapons, it's a scenario we can't afford to ignore. Imagine an immediate aftermath of a nuclear detonation. Cities would be leveled, millions of lives extinguished in an instant, and the survivors left to grapple with an unimaginable scale of destruction. But the immediate devastation is just the beginning. The true horror of a nuclear war lies in its long-term effects on our planet. Picture this. A nuclear explosion releases an enormous amount of energy, some of which is transformed into intense heat. This heat would ignite widespread fires that could burn for days, even weeks. The smoke from these fires, filled with soot and other particulates, would rise into the stratosphere, blocking sunlight from reaching the Earth's surface. This could trigger what scientists refer to as a nuclear winter. A nuclear winter is not just a drop in temperature, it's a season of darkness and cold that could last for years. With the sun obscured, global temperatures could plummet, causing widespread crop failures and famine. The ozone layer, our shield against harmful ultraviolet radiation, could be severely depleted, leading to an increase in skin cancers and other health problems. Consider this. A study by scientists at Rutgers University suggests that a conflict involving just 100 nuclear warheads could lead to the deaths of more than 2 billion people over a decade. That's almost a quarter of the world's population, and we have not even touched upon the psychological trauma, the social upheaval, and the economic collapse that would follow. These are not just hypothetical scenarios, they are based on scientific studies and historical precedents. The atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945 serve as a grim reminder of the destructive power of nuclear weapons. And the Chernobyl and Fukushima disasters highlight the long-term environmental and health effects of nuclear fallout. With such catastrophic consequences, it's crucial to understand which countries have the power to unleash such destruction. To delve deeper, let's turn our attention to the nations currently armed with nuclear weapons in the next scene. 9 countries in the world currently have nuclear weapons. Let's start with the United States and Russia, the 2 nations that lead the pack in terms of nuclear weapon count. The US, the first to test a nuclear weapon in July of 1945, currently maintains a policy of deterrence. Russia, on the other hand, first tested its nuclear weapon in August of 1949, and like the US, also follows a policy of nuclear deterrence. Next, we have the United Kingdom, France, and China. The United Kingdom, which first tested a nuclear weapon in October of 1952, maintains a policy of minimum credible deterrence. France, having first tested their weapon in February of 1960, has a similar policy. China, who conducted its first nuclear test in October of 1964, follows a policy of minimum deterrence and a no first-use pledge. Moving on to India and Pakistan, 2 neighboring countries with a history of conflict. India conducted its first nuclear test in May of 1974, and while it has a no first-use policy, it does maintain the option to retaliate if attacked with biological or chemical weapons. Pakistan, which tested its nuclear weapon in May of 1998, has a policy of credible minimum deterrence. Then we have Israel, a country that has never officially confirmed nor denied possessing nuclear weapons, though it's widely believed to have them. Their policy, fittingly, is one of nuclear ambiguity. Lastly, North Korea stands alone as the most recent country to join the nuclear club, having conducted its first nuclear test in October of 2006. Its policy is one of nuclear deterrence against potential threats. So, with these countries holding the power to cause such devastation, what can be done to prevent a nuclear war? The threat of nuclear war is more real than one might imagine. It's a chilling statement, isn't it? But let's take a closer look at why this is the case. First, political tensions. The world is a complex tapestry of nations with diverse interests, ideologies, and ambitions. These differences often lead to friction, and in some cases outright hostility. For instance, consider the long-standing tension between North Korea and the United States, or the frosty relations between India and Pakistan. Both pairs have nuclear weapons, and in both cases a misstep or miscalculation could lead to unthinkable devastation. Then there are territorial disputes. These are disagreements over who controls a piece of land or a body of water, and they can be just as heated as political conflicts. One example is the South China Sea dispute, where several nations, including China and the Philippines, lay claim to the same maritime areas. In such situations, the presence of nuclear weapons can act as both a deterrent and a potential trigger for conflict. Lastly, we have the risk of accidental launches. This might sound like something out of a dystopian movie, but it's a genuine concern. Nuclear weapon systems are complex, and like any technology, they can fail or malfunction. There have been several close calls in the past. In 1983, during the height of the Cold War, a Soviet early warning system falsely reported the launch of American missiles. It was only the cool-headed decision of the officer on duty, Stanislav Petrov, that averted a retaliatory nuclear strike. These are just a few examples of how the threat of nuclear war is ever present. Each of these factors alone is cause for concern, but together they create a precarious balance, a dance on the edge of a razor blade. It's a sobering reality, but one we must confront if we are to ensure the future of our planet. So how can we prevent such a catastrophe from happening? That's the question we'll tackle in our next segment. Preventing nuclear war requires global cooperation and strong leadership. It's a truth that resonates universally. But what does this entail exactly? Let's delve into the actions that leading nations can take to prevent the unthinkable. First up, diplomacy. Diplomacy is the art of negotiating and maintaining relations between countries. It's a crucial tool in the arsenal of peace, used to avert conflicts and foster understanding. When it comes to nuclear weapons, diplomacy can help establish common ground and mutual respect, reducing the likelihood of nuclear escalation. Next, we have arms control treaties. These are agreements between nations to limit the number, type, or deployment of weapons they possess. Treaties like the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons play a pivotal role in curbing the spread and use of nuclear weaponry. By adhering to such treaties, countries can establish trust and promote stability. Third, disarmament. This involves the reduction or elimination of a country's nuclear arsenal. While this is a big step, and certainly not without its challenges, it's a potent symbol of a nation's commitment to peace. It sends a powerful message to other countries, fostering a climate of trust and cooperation. Lastly, improving relations with other nuclear-armed countries is key. This can be achieved through open communication, transparency, and mutual respect. Building positive relations can reduce tensions, ease suspicions, and ultimately lower the risk of nuclear conflict. It's important to remember that these actions aren't standalone solutions, but pieces of a complex puzzle. They need to be pursued simultaneously and with unwavering commitment if we are to successfully prevent nuclear war. It's a daunting task, no doubt, but one that is absolutely necessary for the survival of our planet. It's clear that preventing nuclear war is a task that falls on the shoulders of our world leaders. But this doesn't mean we as individuals are powerless. But what does this mean for us, the general public? Scene script: each of us has a role to play in preventing nuclear war. Yes, you heard it right. We, the people, have power. And it's not just about the men and women sitting in the high offices of our government. We can and we must influence nuclear policy. But how, you might ask? Well, let's dive in. First, we can vote. Yes, your ballot matters. By voting, we can choose leaders who prioritize peace over war, diplomacy over aggression, and who value the future of our planet. By voting, we can elect officials who are committed to nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation. But voting is just the first step. We can also engage in activism. Protests, sit-ins, petitions, these are all tools we can use to make our voices heard. The anti-nuclear movements of the past have shown that collective action can bring about real change. We can also raise awareness. Talk to your friends, your family, your neighbors. Use social media, write a blog or an op-ed, host a community meeting or a webinar. The more people know about the risks and the consequences of nuclear war, the more they will be motivated to act. And last, but certainly not least, we can educate ourselves. It's important to be informed about nuclear issues. We need to understand the consequences of nuclear war, the humanitarian and environmental catastrophe that it would cause. We need to know about the current state of nuclear affairs, about the treaties and agreements that are in place to prevent nuclear war. Knowledge is power, and with power comes responsibility. Remember, preventing nuclear war is not just about policy and politics. It's about survival. It's about the future of our planet and the future of humanity. So the power to prevent nuclear war lies not just with our leaders, but with us too. We are the change we wish to see in the world. Let's use our power wisely.